Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a new real-life car review. In this episode I'm reviewing the updated Mazda 6 Sportbreak, and this is a very special version, namely the 20th anniversary edition. The Mazda 6 has been on sale for 20 years now, and this is the third generation. The first two generations each lasted 10 years, and 11 years ago, in August 2012, the current generation was introduced at the Moscow Auto Show, and it went on sale in 2013. So this car has been on sale very long, but it got model year updates every year. So I'm reviewing the most updated version in a very special edition. So let's find out what this car is all about. Ever since this car has been on sale, it's been praised for its design, and it's won a number of design awards over the years, and for good reasons. It's a very elegant, sleek, beautiful looking car. It has had some redesigns over the years, already in 2015 I believe, and then in 2018 the car got another update. It's got full LED headlights which are adaptive. The daytime running light is in this part over here, which also acts as an indicator. This color is called Artisan Red, and it's only available on the 20th anniversary edition. It's a beautiful color. No one does red paint better than Mazda, that must be said. And it looks like a brown cherry hue, and it changes with the light on it. It's a very deep and very distinct color, and only available on this car for 150 euros extra. It got this large front grille with, it looks, it's not all chrome, it's like a matte chrome like the wheels, and there's only this large chrome wing. Well, it's a large part in chrome in here. It looks very chic, and that's what people tell me. This must be an 80,000 euro car. Well, it isn't, it's still expensive at 58 and a little bit, almost 59. The 20th anniversary edition comes with this 19-inch wheels with, I would say, Gunsmoke chrome. They're wrapped in Bridgestone tires in the size 225, 45 or 19, obvious 19-inch wheels, and they suit this car very well. Don't need to be any smaller for ride comfort, they don't need to be any larger for better handling. This is a good size, but it's also due to the suspension of this car, which has always been good from the get-go. The interior of the Mazda 6 has always been one of its unique selling points. It's been updated twice. First time in 2015, where they changed the entire dashboard structure, and in 2018 it was redone again. In this version you get this beautiful suede over the entire dashboard, which is genuine suede. It's also in the doors, and even in the rear doors they applied a large area of suede. These pieces over here, these trims, it's also in the doors, is Japanese sandwood. I thought it was some sort of plastic, but it appears to be genuine wood. There's only a little bit of high gloss plastic here in the center console, but it's nothing you touch with your fingers, so there are no fingerprints over there. And also this 20th anniversary edition has these nice embossed logos in the headrests, leather for the bolstering, and suede, a shorter grain suede on the center areas where you sit and where your back rests, and that's very nice. These are very comfortable seats. They have two memories, electrical adjustment on both front seats. They're heated, they're ventilated. That also goes for the rear seats. I'll get back to that in the next scene. But overall this dashboard is very nice. It's very traditional, but I like it very much. I just came out of the Ioniq 6, which is very modern, very futuristic, and then you get into this and you think, oh, this is also very nice. What really stands out for me are three things. I have a pocket over here for my sunglasses. I miss that in every other recent test car. There is a small screen, not bigger than absolutely necessary. There are rotary knobs for the temperature control, there's a rotary and push knob for the volume, and there's the central controller for the infotainment system. This infotainment system is a bit dated, but it does what I need it to do. And also there's a wireless phone charger, and of course it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So if this doesn't work for you, if you need more, well, you just connect your smartphone and you're good to go. Instrument cluster. The centerpiece is a TFT screen which blends in perfectly with the physical gauges, and Mazda only uses the center part of this screen to blend in information from the trip computer and the adaptive cruise control and the other driver aid systems. You can switch it off like I have right now, and then it's just a normal speedometer. There are two smaller gauges to the side. One is the average fuel consumption and the other is a secondary fuel gauge which shows the remaining range of the car. It would have been nice if Mazda would have thrown in a voltmeter or an oil temperature meter, because now I have three gauges that tell me everything about fuel and fuel consumption, and that's a bit overkill. But all in all, this interior, even though this car is a bit older right now, it still is one of the nicest interiors on the market. In terms of seating positioning and seating comfort, this is the nicest back seat in this series so far. It doesn't have the most legroom or headroom, but if I had to sit 1,000 kilometers on a back seat, this would be my car of choice. Nice materials. There's also suede on the seat and on the seat back and in the door, so they didn't cut cars over there. Not a lot of headroom, but sufficient for me, and not the largest legroom, but I can stow my feet under the front seat in my driving positions, which is very nice. I have two vents over here, and here in the armrest there is heated rear seats in three positions. There's a cup holder and there's a small pocket over here with two USB-A outlets for charging your smartphone or other devices. And there's also a small pocket for stuff over here. Yeah, view towards the outside is good, but because the headliner and the pillars are very black and we have tinted windows over here, it can be a bit dark, but it is not claustrophobic by any means. But like I said, for longer trips, this would be my preferred car. When it comes to drivetrain options, I can be very short. There are only two. There is a 2-liter skyactiv G with 165 horsepower, which is always mated to an automatic 6-speed gearbox. We'll get to the gearbox in the driving segment, and the higher trim levels get a 2.5-liter skyactiv G, which produces 194 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, so that is at redline, and 258 Newton meters of torque at 4,000 RPM. Skyactiv G means that it has a high compression ratio, and there is no turbos, there is no hybridization over here, so this is really old school, well engineering engine technology. It does have some sort of hybridization in the form of the IE loop system, which consists of a supercapacitor which captures the energy of the alternator right here when you're coasting or slowing down. The alternator is capable of freewheeling, so it runs faster than the engine drives it, and that energy is stored in a supercapacitor, which in turn powers the electric power steering and the AC and a lot of other electrical systems. By doing that, they can save up to 5% of fuel consumption. This engine does have cylinder deactivation, and I didn't notice that until yesterday when I had the energy monitor in screen. When you coast or when you're not using a lot of power with up to 15-20% of the accelerator pedal input, the engine shuts off both outer cylinders and runs on both inner cylinders, and it does that quite a lot, and it doesn't disturb the engine balance. I didn't notice anything of it until I saw it on that monitor, and it also saves fuel. I'll get back to the fuel consumption in my final thoughts and in the driving segment, but overall the engine characteristics of this engine are typical for an undersquare engine. The 2.5 liters it gets out of a bore of 89 millimeters and a stroke of 100 millimeters. So yeah, that really is an under square engine. Torque in the low end, and it doesn't really want to rev high in the rev range, although it does deliver its power there. This engine feels at best between 1,000 and, well, say 4,500 RPM. Nevertheless, it's a very nice engine. It's proven technology, and if you choose this over any more complex drive system, it's always good to know that these engines are known inside and out by the Mazda dealers. This is, like I said, proven technology, and actually this is a worry-free engine. Now let's have a peek in the trunk before we go out for the drive. The one thing that dates the Mazda 6 Sportbreak is the fact that it doesn't have an electric trunk opener, but look, how hard can it be? Huge cargo capacity, as you might expect. It has a cargo capacity of 552 liters with the seat back in place. You pull those levers, the seats fold down in a 60-40 split, and then you'll end up with a cargo capacity of 1664 liters and a maximum loading capacity of 662 kilos. That's quite a bit. Yesterday I hauled parts for Project LS400, which were large and heavy, and I was surprised by how well the rear axle adjusts to that load. Mazda has a reputation of building good suspension and good handling cars, and even when you put this car to use and you start loading it up, it still handles great. I've driven a lot of wagons over the years, and oftentimes when you started putting heavy stuff in there, especially the rear axle butts under that, and it affected the handling. Not in this car, which is a good thing. It does have some cargo hooks over here, and there's a 12-volt outlet over there. It does have a small hidden area under here, but it's only for smaller stuff. You go traveling, you can put your socks and underwear in there. Anywho, let's close up, let's go out for a drive. So what do I like about this car? Well, this being a Mazda, Mazda always had a tradition of making each new generation lighter than the outgoing one. This car only weighs 1450 kilos. I'll blend in the exact number over here, and you can really tell that. Suspension setup is nice. These tires and tire size suit the car really well. It's a very nice handling car. What does date this car, you can tell that the insulation of the suspension, the road noises, isn't as good in more modern cars, but overall it's not bad. Wind noise is noticeably higher than in the Ioniq 6, but that car was extremely quiet in terms of wind noise. Now, that being said, Mazda does some things really well, and one of the things Mazda does really well is the way the car interacts with me as a driver. I like the size of this smaller screen. When I don't use it, it doesn't bother me. Oftentimes when you have larger screen, they always blare in your face, and sooner or later these things will get an eyesore. This small digital screen in the gates cluster is very easy to read, and I always set it to its most basic settings. What the car does really good, like I said, is the way it interacts. Currently I have the speed limit here in screen, also see it in head-up display, and there's a small red stripe in the scale of the speedometer that tells me that's the maximum speed over here. And when I pass that speed, it draws a thin line around the circumference that very gently and very subtly tells me that I'm going a bit too fast. It doesn't beep like the Ioniq 6 did. That was truly annoying, so you had to switch off the system the entire time, and by doing so you switched off the entire traffic sign monitoring system. Another thing that this car doesn't have, it doesn't have the SOS button or an e-call system. That's down to the technical generation of this car. It just isn't prepared for that. It doesn't have the driver monitoring system, and that's truly a breath of fresh air of not having such a system. So that's all good, but one thing that I specifically like is that I can switch the lane departure warning off, and it stays off after every start, so you can permanently switch it off. Only thing is, when I start using the adaptive cruise control, it automatically engages. So now I have the cruise control on standby, when I would switch it on. Oh, wait a second here. And I switch the system on, set it right now. It automatically engages the lane departure warning, so it can use the steer assist and stay centered inside the lanes. But once I get off the highway, on those 60 km/h lanes we have over here with those weird lane markings, well, the lane departure warning is automatically switched off again. That's very good, and I wish other manufacturers did that. Now on to the engine characteristic. This is a large 2.5 liter 4-cylinder naturally aspirated engine with almost 200 horsepower, and that's enough for most drives, and especially for this car, this engine suits it really well. I only wish this car would be available with a manual gearbox, because this 6-speed gearbox, it's Mazda's own development, is a bit dated, especially when you compare it with other modern cars. There's two things, there are two remarks I want to make about this gearbox. One is the response time. When you want to overtake a car on the highway and you just push the accelerator a bit, you want to build up speed, it just takes too much time before the gearbox decides that it needs to shift down. And once it thinks you want to build up speed and you finish your overtaking action, you move to your own lane once again, there's a lot of rev hang. It starts hanging in too low gear for too long, and we can easily correct it by using those flappy pedals behind the steering wheel. The gearbox responds very fast to those pedals, so that's good. But on overtaking actions you have to correct the gearbox every single time. And another thing is that the gear ratios are a bit too long for this engine. I think they're better suited for the 2-liter skyactiv engine, and it would really be nice to have a dedicated gearbox with dedicated gear ratios for this car. And the overall quality impression that this interior gives is really astonishing. You push those buttons, there's a nice click to it. They really put effort into how things feel. For instance, those wheels for those fans over here, listen, there's a nice click to it. It's rubberized, and the white parts in here are plastic, so you can really operate this by feel, and everything feels nice. And for instance, when you close the doors and put the car on lock, when you lock the doors, the mirrors fold in, but the motors in these mirrors don't make a noise. And even the camera motors on the Ioniq 6, when the cameras folded inward, they had a distinct noise like all other mirrors, folding mirrors have, and in this car they are quiet. Also goes for the windows. Now I'm gonna close it, and it's so smooth. And that really adds to the quality impression of this car. Now I know Mazda has had some quality issues with the interior electronics, but this car has been in production so long now that you really can tell that they ironed out all the flaws. One thing I want to address is the audio system. The upper trim levels get an upgraded Bose audio system, but it's a typical Bose system which is fairly bass heavy. When you crank up the volume, the bass drum and the bass really dominate the sound. You can tone it down a bit with the equalizer on board, but that deforms the sound again a little bit. So it's not the greatest, but it is a nice system overall. Well, I think I've touched upon all my talking points for the drive segment. So let's head out to the middle of nowhere, where I'll give you my final thoughts on the updated Mazda 6 Sportbreak. Well, we've reached the middle of nowhere once again. It's starting to rain, so let's find a dry spot. So, what are my final thoughts on the Mazda 6 Sportbreak and its updated version? Well, those model year updates, saw a rare thing over here in Europe, always kept the Mazda models and especially the Mazda 6 relevant. It was introduced 11 years ago, it's been on sale 10 years now. Yeah, in some ways you can tell that this car is somewhat dated. The gearbox, especially the gearbox programming, dates this car, and I find it a bit of a shame that the manual 6-speed gearbox is not available anymore. All of its competitors are gone or have gone EV. If I would need to buy a competitor with the same interior and cargo space and loading capacity as this car have, I would end up buying a car that is much more expensive as this car. So if you like handling, steering feel, a nice interior, reliability, and you care for a good fuel economy, the Mazda 6 Sportbreak still is relevant and it's worth considering, in my opinion. Well, with that being said, I hope you liked following me along, and if you did, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, put on notifications. If you have any questions, just go ahead, write a comment, ask me. And if you want to help support the channel, you can do so by buying me a coffee. I'll leave the link down below in the description. For now, I would like to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next real life car review. Thanks and bye.